Hi everyone, here's the Bookchemist once again, and this is a probably speedy review of Jonathan Lethem's The Feral Detective. I've reviewed this novel so late. Jonathan Lethem is one of my very favorite authors, and this is his latest novel. It was hailed as his return to detective fiction after a long time, after Motherless Brooklyn really, which many consider to be his masterpiece, and it's one of those novels I would recommend to everyone out there, every passionate reader, no matter what genres you're into, what national literatures you like to read, just read Motherless Brooklyn. And it was also hailed as Lethem's reply to the election of Donald Trump. As a Lethem fanboy and as a Lethem nerd, Feral Detective looked to me like a rewriting and mature rewriting, or at least a reply to Amnesia Moon. Both of these are post-apocalyptic novels that move in worlds that, in a way, are not post-apocalyptic at all. It's unclear for most of Amnesia Moon whether some kind of big catastrophe actually happened or whether this is all some kind of trip up to a certain point of mass hallucination, whereas in Feral Detective nothing really changed except for possibly what many consider the most tragic political event in recent history, the election of Donald Trump. But you still do get the kinds of reflections that are at the heart of the best post-apocalyptic fiction. Characters dealing with the unimaginable and actually having to confront something they never prepared themselves for, and having to come to terms with the need for some reconstruction, with the need at least to carry on living. It's one of the things that makes The Road by Cormac McCarthy such a widely loved and such a powerful post-apocalyptic novel. The fact that the character's survival is so central to the events of the book, and at the same time so hopeless. You are surprised on a page-by-page level that these people are still there, that they're still alive, you're still reading about their plight, and at the same time you're hoping against hope that anything whatsoever good might happen to them, that they might move forward from the immediate concerns of not dying to something more to hope for. Nothing of the sort happens in Feral Detective. It's not that extreme as a post-apocalyptic novel. I don't think it's a very disturbing book, which is good, because in a way this feels like a pretty mature reaction to the election of Donald Trump. Because, of course, one of the dangers implied in taking on these political events as impossible catastrophes is that you refuse to acknowledge that there's work to be done. You treat it as something that just is unimaginable, and you forget about that moment where there's actual a painful and a difficult reconstruction has to be action, has to begin. Feral Detective shows a character moving from the initial state of hopelessness very slowly, very painfully, through some experiences in the desert with a mysterious feral detective who literally grew up in the wild in some very messed up hippie community. Through her encounter with him and through a couple of, one in particular, bad sex scene. I feel like Jonathan Lethem is developing a collection of bad sex scenes in recent years that would be the envy of Jonathan Franzen, the acknowledged king of awful sex in fiction. Through her encounter with this feral detective, she managed to get to that other stage of learning to, understanding that something needs to happen, that she needs to put in the effort to at least be happy with what she's doing in the world, with what she's doing to influence the flow of history. And it might sound like I spoiled you a pretty important part of what makes this a good novel, but I really didn't, because what makes Feral Detective such a good novel, and I think it's a great novel, is that it is just so rewarding and so good on the level of characters and on the level of plot, which is pretty rare these days. The first-person narrator, this cultured New York woman gone west to look for her missing sister in the aftermath of the Trump election, is very good at playing the fish out of water role and at providing a hilarious perspective on this bizarre hippie community in the desert and on the feral detective himself. This book is hilarious in presenting this woman's how this woman's life, ruled by Tinder dates and by constant reliance on social media, is changed in this primitive environment, and at the same time her investigation, her quest to find her missing sister, and the enigma of this feral detective. What is he about? Is he for real? Is he some crazy psycho? Is he actually some kind of angel? This enigma keeps you hooked from start to finish. There are a few very thrilling bursts of violence across the novel. The relationship between the characters and their chemistry is, if anything, even more interesting than the grim enigmas at the heart of the plot, and also possibly because this is a rather short novel, it flows beautifully fast and keeps you engaged from start to finish. This felt very much like an early Jonathan Lethem novel from the Amnesia Moon, Gun with Occasional Music era of his writing, written from his current, mature, amazing talent and masterful position as one of the best wordsmiths writing today, if you ask me. I don't have a full understanding of how this novel is perceived, and by all means let me know what you thought about it. I do know that it got some mixed reviews and some people weren't very happy with it, but I absolutely loved it. I definitely appreciated it much more and found it a much more rewarding book with a much clearer point to make through much more interesting and nuanced characters and a more thrilling plot than A Gambler's Anatomy. Dissident Gardens is kind of a masterpiece, so it's difficult to compare to it. But at the same time, Feral Detective, let's not compare it to anything. It's an excellent book. If you're looking for an engaging novel about our paradoxical, our bizarre times, this would be a great place to start. And if you're a Lethem fan, you have to read Feral Detective. What did you think about it? I think I might, again, be kind of an exception in my enthusiasm, but I'd love to hear from other people who really had a great time with the book. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, and thank you as always for watching my review. Bye guys.